tape in front of a live
All right,
studio.
hello people, and welcome to episode 50 of the Rockshow. Can you believe that? 5-0.
Yep.
We're live from the Horseshoe Bar. We'll be here for a few hours. If you guys want to come here, have a few drinks,
Yes,
have a good
it's
time.
going to be a two-part episode.
We have the lovely Gina serving us. Me and John will be doing a freak show also later on, but we got a two-parter of Bob Marley, and
Right.
Mike got a lot of information for you guys. I got a shitload of notes, and it's going to be a busy week. We got a lot of fucking work
We
the
do.
next couple of
A
days.
lot of work this
And
week.
you're going back to work soon, so
Yeah, I go back to work on the 3rd, so trying to get everything in before I stumble back to work.
the funny thing, when this show goes on, it's going to be a few days before Bob Marley's birthday.
75th birthday. There's a lot of, starting the 1st, there's a lot of worldwide celebrations going on. There's something going on in Stony Hall
Oh, yeah?
that weekend. Yeah, there's a bunch of things going on around the world, really, for pretty much this whole year, especially February.
Wow. I pretty much consider like Bob Marley like the godfather of reggae, because he's the one that I think really was the first one
Well,
that got it on the map. There were other people that did it, but
no, there were a few people ahead of him,
Yeah.
but he really put it on the map, and he spread the Rastafari spirituality better than anybody on the planet, even to this day.
Yep.
You think of Rastas, you think of Bob Marley.
That's the first guy you think of.
Yeah, you know, it's a little more complicated than that, but
Also,
he really was a spokesman for
You
it.
also think of Gary Oldman in True Romance.
He wasn't a Rasta. That guy was crazy. Clarence Worley, you didn't Clarence Worley.
Hey, it's
funny.
white boy season
I
today.
haven't thought about that in a while. That's funny.
Those are the two most famous Jamaicans,
I know, it's
man.
great. It's great. Definitely. All right, so let's get right into this. Bob was born Robert Nestor Marley. That was February 6, 1945. So his 75th birthday's coming up in a few weeks.
Isn't that a weird name for a Jamaican?
Well, he's only
Nes-
half black.
Okay, half
his,
black.
his father was named Norval Marley. He was a British soldier, kind of like a forest ranger type soldier. And it was in the area of the St. Anne parish called 9 Mile. That's where Bob was born.
Yep.
Now, his mother's name was Sedella. And like I said, the father's name was Norval Marley. He liked to be called Captain Marley. That was his rank. He was originally from the Sussex area of England.
Yep.
He had met Sedella when she was somewhere between 16 and 18.
Yeah, very young.
Kind of very young. Not quite sure exactly how old she was, but she could have been 16.
That guy was Epstein before there was an Epstein.
Yeah, because he was like
He
50.
yeah.
He was like 50 at the time.
He
yeah.
loved young girls.
Yeah. So Bob's father was only around a few times. He only met him a few times in his life. He would send money, and Bob was able to go to school. We went to primary and secondary school in Jamaica, in that area. When he was 10 years old, sadly, his father would pass away. It was at that point
So he must have been around 60 years
he,
old, right?
he was 60, and Bob was 10. Bob was 10. He was a quiet kid, very into music. He had a good friend, Neville Livingston, who we now know as Bunny Wailer.
Bunny Wailer, yep.
They would play music together in the country there. I mean, it was a very country area. Okay, but he would move to Kingston.
Yep.
Okay, and in particular, he would move to Trenchtown in Kingston.
So he pretty much started pretty early with his musical, his music, right? Like
Yeah,
what
like a
age would
young
you say?
kid.
Like a young kid.
Yeah, like a young kid. I mean, there were homemade instruments that Jamaicans used to make. It was like there was like a banjo type thing. There was a thing that I don't know what you call it, but it was like a box with metal on it.
Yeah.
And you would like pluck at the metal and it would make a sound, you know, and they would play things like
drums,
that.
remember?
Steel drums and things like that.
They would do that great fucking sound that you hear sometimes.
Yeah. Now, interesting is Bob's mom actually had a kid with Neville's father. Okay, so they were actually like they didn't get married, but the kid was accepted as a Marley.
That's a Marley, okay.
Yeah, as a Marley, and they would move all of them to Trenchtown in 1955. Actually 57. So Bob was about 12 at that point, and they were all living together in Trenchtown outside of Kingston. Now, if you don't know what Trenchtown is, it's basically it's always been an impoverished area, very poor.
Yeah.
It's a lot of like metal shacks, concrete blocks.
Yeah.
What you see in the Caribbean, you still see places like that today.
You think the Concrete Jungle is based on that song? Pretty
Sure.
much. That's definitely.
Sure. I mean, when he played, especially that's an early song.
Yeah.
He was playing in the yards of Trenchtown.
Yeah.
Okay. There would be these like community yards between the houses.
And he always made reference to like Trench, right? Is that in his song?
There's a song called Trenchtown
Yeah.
Rock.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's a great song.
Yeah. And he mentions in that song different streets and everything. It was definitely, he was a country kid. So here he was coming to the city. So it was a big life change.
Yeah.
Bob, Bunny, and Peter Tosh, Beverly Kelso, Junior Braithwaite, and Joe Higgs, okay, all became friends in Trenchtown. Joe Higgs was already established as kind of like an R&B, ska-ish kind of guy. He had a semi-professional career going at the time. They would basically rehearse as a vocal group, and this would be, like I said, in the yards behind Trenchtown. Okay, and it was a lot of like almost doo-wop what they were doing. They were teenagers. Okay, Higgs was a little bit older. Basically, they would practice daily where Joe Higgs had his residence in Trenchtown. I believe it was on 3rd Street. They would practice mostly vocal harmonies. They didn't really play instruments then, but that would change. Bob would pick up a guitar. He would start to learn how to play stuff.
Yeah.
Bunny Wailer played a lot of percussion eventually. Now, in February 1962, Bob was 17 at the time. He would release 4 songs, okay? Some singles, a song called Judge Not, a song called One Cup of Coffee. Now, that was under the name Bob Martelli, okay? Bob Martell. A song called Do You Still Love Me, and a song called Terror. Now, they were all produced by early reggae producer Leslie Kahn. These songs were not really reggae. Reggae hadn't actually been formed yet.
No, they were like
they were more
much,
like ska.
Yeah,
they were like ska sounding, which was very popular in the early '60s.
Yeah,
in
because
Jamaica.
when you look at Bob Marley's like style, he was like reggae, ska, and even a little bit of rock and roll.
Absolutely.
And he was very diversified. Like his music was very
one big influence.
Touch a little bit of everything.
Absolutely. One big influence on Bob Marley and especially the early Wailers was Curtis Mayfield and the Impressions.
Oh yeah.
All right, Curtis Mayfield here in the States was an R&B guy, most famously, I guess, known for the Superfly soundtrack and a lot of other things.
Great song.
But his stuff with the Impressions, you could hear how Marley would be listening to that.
Yep.
There's a song called People Get Ready that the Impressions had done that he would cover later on in life. So that was definitely a big influence. One other big influence on these early reggae guys that kind of doesn't get mentioned a lot is country music.
Yeah.
In Jamaica in the early 60s, basically what you heard on the radio was American R&B, American country music, American country music, and ska, which was really the most popular kind of music on the island. And it would be that form of, the Toots and the Maytals do a version of Country Roads that John Denver did. So, the country influence is there. In 1963, Bob, Bunny Wailer, Tosh, Junior Braithwaite, Beverly Kelso, and Cherry Smith, became the Teenagers. That was the original name.
Yeah.
Then quickly it would become the Wailing Rude Boys.
The Wailing Rude Boys.
And then it would become the Wailing Wailers.
The Wailing Wailers, yep.
Okay, so they were trying different names. They would settle on the Wailing Wailers for a little while, and by February of '64, if you put it in the context of what was going on in the States at the same time, the Beatles had just landed and were huge. So in February of '64, the Wailing Wailers with Bob Marley would have a #1 hit with a song called Simmer Down.
Simmer Down.
Okay, now they were recording regularly now at Studio One, which was the famous studios owned by Coxwell and Dodd. They had the best producers, the best musicians available to them, the best equipment available to them.
Definitely, they had equipment that was really good and stuff.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Now, by '66 or so, Braithwaite, Beverly Kelso, and Cherry Smith left the group.
Yep.
So what you had at that point was the core of Bob Marley, Bunny Wailer, and Peter Tosh. All right. Now, in '66, Bob would marry Rita. Rita was a girl from Traintown that he got acquainted with, basically because she was just a neighbor of the people where he practiced.
Yeah.
Okay, and he would see her, and they would see each other. And rumor is that Peter Tosh was actually after her first.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So that must have been weird. When
Yeah, I think she just liked Bob right away. He was quiet, he was shy. She liked that about him.
And she didn't Yoko Ono the weightings either.
She did or she didn't?
She didn't.
Well, you
She
might want
tried.
to. You know what? We could get into that because
She tried.
Bunny Wailer and her did not get along too good.
Yeah.
Okay, so there was some problems there, but she had a semi-career of her own
Yeah.
at that point. She was very involved with the Christian church and sang in the church, and I think she had put out some backing vocals on some records,
Oh, yeah.
other people and stuff. So she was known as a singer. When they got married, they were broke, truthfully.
Yeah.
Okay, and he couldn't find any work in Jamaica. Now his mother had recently got married again and left to go to the States, to go to Wilmington, Delaware, where her husband was from and working. She ended up having a few kids with him as well. So Bob decided to go to Wilmington, Delaware, and see what he could do. Now he actually worked in the DuPont factory, which is a big corporation based out of Delaware.
Yep.
Okay, and he also drove a forklift at the Chrysler plant that was there at the time. And he kept to himself. Before he left, he got interested in Rastafari.
Yep.
At that point, I think he was still on the fence as far as being a Rasta. There was a lot of stereotypical attitudes towards Rastas at that point in Jamaica. They were treated very badly.
Yeah.
If you grew your hair in dreadlocks, cops would pick you up and cut your hair.
They were like very
would cut your hair
yeah,
off.
they were like really fucking them. They were like,
And even regular Jamaicans
yeah.
didn't like them either.
yeah, which was like amazing, man.
Yeah.
Like that pretty much, that Rastafari lifestyle pretty much started with these guys.
Well, it
started
started in the 30s.
Yeah.
And really it was kind of
very low.
It was very under the radar
Yeah,
kind
under
of
the
thing.
radar.
But by the time in the 60s, it was starting to be more common.
Yeah.
It had moved. It was a kind of a country thing to start with, and
Yeah.
then it became a city thing. You started seeing it in Trenchtown and
Yep.
places like that.
More people got involved,
Yeah.
Everything starts with, any religion or any culture start with like a few people. And then you
Interesting
just
story
pass,
that
you pass it down.
Yeah, right. But Bunny Wailer had an interesting story. One time I heard him talk about this. He said when he was a kid, in the same area where he grew up with Bob in 9 Mile, his parents would say, "Stay away from the Rasta man."
Wow.
Okay, he's the Black Heart man. Okay, now years later, he would write a song called Black Heart Man.
Yep.
But he said his first experience with a Rastafari was he was in the street and a Rasta came out of the sewer. And started talking to him, came out of a manhole in the street and started talking to him. And I guess he was telling him about it and whatever. And he said he wasn't scared of him. Everyone had said you should be afraid of
He should be, but he wasn't afraid.
He wasn't afraid of him. But the guy came out of the
So was it Bunny that converted Bob Marley into, or was it Bob Marley's mother already a Rasta? How did he get his learnings?
Well, you know what? It's a little shady. I don't think it was one particular person. There were several Rasta preachers kind of at that time. A guy named, I believe his name was Morton Planow. A bunch of other people. It was well known what the religion was. Okay. But it was not a lifestyle people chose without getting harassed.
Let me
it was
ask
hard.
you, how did they get the weed? Like, is weed legal in Jamaica? How would
Weed
they
is
get
legal
the-
now in
Yeah.
Jamaica, I believe. They've relaxed all the laws, but back then it grew wild. Okay. There's different stories about how we got into the Rastafari lifestyle.
Yeah.
I've heard stories where in the early days they basically grew it and sold it, to live on, because they lived in communes up in the mountains. All right, so they really didn't have a way to make a lot of money, and that was one way to do it. Of course, the belief is that weed is in it's a thing that helps you meditate, and
Meditate,
you get in
concentrate.
touch with yourself.
Oh, yeah.
And I believe that.
Yeah.
But it's not meant to be overused.
You know how many times I smoke weed and I'm in another dimension? Many
Well,
times.
yeah. I mean, if you try reading the Bible when you're doing it.
I'm gonna tell you an interesting story. You remember back in the days? I don't know. I know you're a native New Yorker, but in New York City, growing up as a kid, most of the time bodega used to be run by
Rastas.
Jamaicans.
I knew a lot in Queens like that.
So
yeah.
in Hell's Kitchen, you had the fucking store, and there would be basic stuff. There'll be like chips. There'll be like nothing to be chips, soda, beer.
Right.
And then you had that one chip in front of the store that was there forever. And
Just sitting there.
and that's how you knew, like, you
That-
would go, you would pay for
that's
your
where you
soda.
could get your weed.
So you pay for your soda if you wanted like a dime bag or a $5 or
Just
whatever.
had to ask.
So no, you just put it with the money.
Yeah.
The guy would count it. There was no and the
Yeah.
guy would give you the bag with whatever it was.
Yeah.
And you just gotta get in contact that somebody had introduced you, and that's the way. And then they would make money or help another brother come back, and they would open another store. They all ran the store for a long
Yeah.
time. Even
Yeah.
on my block, there was
It might be a family.
there was a store there that was for years. It was a pot store.
Yeah.
And you would go there, you would get like your can of whatever soda
Yeah.
or the 25-cent juice that you give them. Like,
I remember places like that down here.
and it was on cigarettes also, so that's what they would do.
Yeah,
a lot of
maybe
times.
beer.
Yeah, beer, cigarettes, soda,
Yeah.
and chips.
Yeah.
No sandwiches or coffee. They had coffee, maybe some of them.
Right.
But that's
bag
how,
of chips.
Yeah,
that's it.
it's fucking it was
Yeah,
fantastic.
it's, you knew what it was,
You know what it was. Let me get a tray bag, baby.
In those days, though, in Jamaica, I mean, these guys would get, beaten by the cops, arrested by the cops. If they heard you were from Trenchtown, on top of being a Rasta, you were going away for a long time. Sadly, that's how it was. Now they've made some restitution with these people over the years, and there's actually Rastafaris in Jamaica in the government
Wow.
now, so it's changed.
Let's go. Here with Rastafari in the garden, do they drug test them?
That would be a problem.
That would be a problem.
That would be a problem. The problem is that Rastafari is not really a religion. Okay, it's more of a lifestyle.
Okay.
You're conscious about certain things, but there's no real organized religion. So there's a problem with trying to get it official.
Okay.
Okay, but Rastas don't want that anyway.
Yeah.
Okay, Rastas don't want to have that religion label on what they believe, because religion is really man-made. All right, and all the like in the Catholic Church, all those rules and stuff is made up by men.
Rastafari is man-made. Also, it's
No.
men that get high and they read the Bible.
You don't have to get it. It's not. That's a.
I would want to get high. If I would get, I'd want to get as strong as possible.
Some people think that as a Rasta you're forced to get high, or that's what you have to do.
Yeah.
No, that's not true. I know Rastas that don't smoke at all.
Wow.
Okay, and as myself, I don't do it that much. Okay, and it's not meant to be. Some people are just potheads.
Yeah.
Okay, that's really what it is, and that's fine. I'm not putting that down.
I'm not a pothead, but I do
I don't mean
like
you, I'm
pot.
talking
I
Rastas.
do like my pot
Yeah.
once in a while, and I do like my gummies or my chocolate. I get totally fucked up.
Yeah.
So Bob Marley is doing forklift operation in the state.
Yeah, he's working in Delaware, keeping to himself, writing music.
And
Kinda-
what year is this?
This was 66.
66.
Okay, now shortly after he
But
left,
didn't he release an album in '65? Like the
these
Way
were a
of
couple
Man?
of there was a couple of singles. There wasn't an album. Okay,
they- I had
but
that,
once that died down,
Yeah.
and Coxzone Dodd from Studio One ripped him off.
Oh shit! Yeah.
Those guys would not. Did you ever see the movie The Harder They Come with Jimmy Cliff?
No, I never seen this.
Okay,
Yeah,
it's great.
movie that-
It's a great movie. It's about a guy who breaks into the music industry, gets ripped off, ends up being a gangster type. It's a good movie. Jimmy Cliff stars in it, and but it's very true what they tell in that movie is these guys would make a song, the song would be a big hit, and they wouldn't see anything from it. You just might got paid for the day.
Yeah,
that
wow.
you recorded it. That's it. And these guys would make millions of dollars off for you.
That's almost like what happened to the Kings. Remember the Kings?
Happened to a lot of musicians in
like,
different genres,
wow.
all over the world at that time. Now, getting back to Rastafari for a second, in April of 1966, on the 21st to be exact, His Imperial Majesty Haile Selassie I of Ethiopia visited Jamaica. Now, if you understand Rastafarianism, it's basically, we believe that Haile Selassie is the second coming of Jesus Christ.
He's the Messiah.
He's a Messiah.
He's a Messiah.
He's a Messiah. There's been many Messiahs. Okay, Christ was a Messiah.
Yeah.
Okay,
And Muhammad was like a Messiah too, right?
Some might believe that, not me, but some might believe
No,
that.
but I'm saying
like
he's
Elijah
like-
in the
yeah,
Bible
Elijah,
was a Messiah.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
King David, you could
Oh, yeah,
say
King
was a
David.
Messiah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Definitely King David.
yeah,
was like
absolutely. Even Solomon, in some ways, you could say was. But he would come to the island to make a visit.
Right, here's the real quick. Is he bloodline with David?
Yes.
In order to be considered, you gotta have that
well,
David.
Exactly.
Which a lot of people don't know that.
In a nutshell, and we talked about this in that conspiracy
Yeah.
show with the Ark of the Covenant.
Oh yeah,
we got into it in more detail.
But
in a nutshell, is basically, if you remember your Old Testament, is Solomon and Sheba they met and had a child. Now that child is a bloodline directly from the line of David, going into Ethiopia, because Sheba was Ethiopia.
So this
when
guy
she
is
came,
from the bloodline.
he is right. Haile
All right.
Selassie is the 225th emperor of the bloodline.
Wow.
Okay, of the tribe of Judah.
You just blew my mind.
Yeah, I mean it's true, and he was predicted to be the coming Messiah, and Rastas on the island believed that, and when he came, it was madness. They crowded the airport. There was
saw
over
that.
100,000 people there.
Who was it that saw something? Somebody saw
Rita.
that. Rita.
Yeah,
Somebody
I was just
saw
going to
that-
say that.
Yeah.
Rita was in Jamaica while Bob was in the States, and she went to the airport to welcome him with 100,000 other people.
Yeah.
The way she tells the story is that it was raining out, and you could see the plane coming in, and as it got closer, you could see that there were 7 doves preceding it, and then as it landed, the sun came out.
Wow.
Okay, and there was a crowd all around the plane. At first, Haile Selassie didn't want to come out. It took a little while for him to come out. Then when he did, there was a procession into Kingston from the airport.
Yes.
And many people were lined up alongside of the road to see him come.
That's
okay?
pretty incredible. The video, you sent me a documentary
Yeah.
about Bob Marley that was pretty good. It's like about 2.5 hours, but it goes into a lot of detail. And
That was the documentary from 2012.
Yeah, they showed the footage of this guy arriving, and Rita's talk about it.
Yeah.
And she's saying she saw something.
She, everybody who's ever had an account that was there of what they saw, all had a mystical experience. Like everybody felt that when he was waving at people, they felt that he was looking directly at them. Okay, it was a very personal kind of greeting. And when Rita was there, when he was waving, she saw the stigmata of Christ, the holes, okay, in his hand.
Wow.
Okay, and she knew at that point. Now, she went and told Bob immediately. They were keeping in touch with letters every day back and forth. And he was convinced too, at that point. And he decided he was, going to become part of the Rastafari community once he got back to Jamaica, which he would do shortly. He would leave, come back towards the end of the year. In '67, he would have a fallout with Coxon Dodd over the money at Studio One. But he would start working again with the Wailers, with Lee Scratch Perry.
Let me ask you a quick. That first album that came, the Wailing, that song had some pretty interesting songs, because wasn't One Love on that album?
It was an early version of it.
Yeah, early version. They had One
The Wailing
Love.
Wailers, I don't
And
think
Get
they
Ready?
I don't think
People
they really
Get-
had a
Get
full
Ready?
album. Okay,
But that was like an EP?
might have been like an EP,
Yeah.
or if I could be wrong because I've never seen it. There are CDs and stuff you could buy now with their compilations, but I don't think they actually had an album. If I'm wrong, I apologize.
I don't
You
know,
guys can
because for
tell
some
me.
reason I had that as the first album. Then the second album I had It's Soul Rebels.
No, I don't think that's correct.
Because that came in 1970. I got to listen to this I got.
Yeah. Okay. Well, there might be compilations out there. That
Actually, these are studio albums.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Yeah,
so.
yeah. I think they were compilations that came out of their singles.
And I was surprised how many live albums they had.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
I was like, I thought they would have more than that.
Yeah, no, the Wailing Wailers or just the Wailers?
The Wailers, yeah. It was,
No, well, they only had the two. It wasn't a long career if you think about it, you know. Between '67 and '69, he would work with Lee Scratch Perry. Also, he was working with producer Leslie Kong. Okay, and like I said before, Kong was a major innovator into the reggae sound, the forming of it, and what it was. So it was important that Bob was in the mix with that as well. Now reggae was kind of a slower beat than what other popular music was at the time. Ska was a lot faster.
Oh yeah.
Rocksteady was slightly slower, but not as slow as reggae. There's no trumpets too much in reggae. You might have some horns here and there, but basically it's you're playing an electric guitar over a heavy bass beat. Between '68 and '72, Bob would do a lot of things with the band. It was Bob, Peter Tosh, and Bunny Wailer with Rita Marley doing backing vocals. They recorded some old songs. Now this is stuff that you got here, okay?
Yeah.
They would, Bunny always said these things were never really meant to be released, okay, because they were more like demos. They were trying to shop stuff to get this big record deal that was eluding them. They would go to England, okay, do some work there. But before that happened, in '68, Bob and Rita actually came up here to the Bronx.
Okay.
And they met a guy named Jimmy Norman, who was working with Johnny Nash. Johnny Nash, you might remember, had that hit, "I Can See Clearly Now." I can see clearly now, the rain is gone. Right? It was had like kind of a reggae beat to it. He was working on a movie in Europe, and they had asked Bob Marley to write some of the songs for the movie, which he did. But they weren't. They would end up being in England and Sweden to do that. Okay. That was their first time away from, really into a cold area like England.
Yeah.
I mean, Bob went up to Delaware. It gets cold there too. But these other guys had never been out of the country.
England once he went there, right?
Bob didn't mind England. It was Bunny that didn't like it. Bunny didn't like it. He didn't like the cold.
Yeah.
That would be a problem in a couple of years once they got everything going. But the record with Johnny Nash bombed. The soundtrack and the movie itself bombed. So unfortunately, they were running out of money. Now, the blessing that happened on that trip to England was they met Chris Blackwell of Island Records. Ooh. And Chris had actually taken some of their singles and re-released them in England at the time. So he knew who they were. Okay. He had bought the rights from, I guess, Studio One or whatever.
Studio One, yeah, of course.
Put it out on Island. And Marley was looking to get paid. He knew about Chris Blackwell. And he just came into his office one day, and the way Blackwell tells the story is like, they had a reputation of being kind of like gangsters, okay, but they weren't. Yeah. But that was the reputation because they were Rastas.
Yeah, because they were Rastas.
They had that.
People were already intimidated by them.
They were like, oh, they'll shoot you or whatever. But he walked out of the office with a record deal.
Yep.
Okay.
That's what he wanted.
That's what he wanted. Instead of basically paying him what he might have owed him, I guess, for the singles, he said, "Look, I'll give you a record deal, 4,000 British pounds, make an album in Jamaica." Now that was a lot of money to make in a Jamaican studio. That was a fair amount of money.
Yeah.
But everybody thought he was crazy. His associates were like, "You're never going to see anything out of that. Those guys aren't going to do anything." This was a stupid move. But he had a reason for doing it as well, because Jimmy Cliff, who was probably the biggest guy out of Jamaica at the time, left Island Records. So that he needed to get another good artist on that.
What year was that?
That was like 1970.
1970.
Yeah. Okay. Now, they would make an album. A few months later, he would check on them, and that would be the Catch a Fire album. All right.
Yeah.
The first album by them released. It came out in April of '73. So let me correct myself. That was probably 1972, 73. That deal came through.
Oh yeah. So the Catch a Fire was in '73.
'73. Yeah. So you asked me when that was. I'd say it's about 73 or late 72 that he got signed.
Yeah, I'm fixing my notes here
Yeah.
because I had some different. Because those must have been like these albums must have been where that company won. These other
Studio
albums,
One.
Studio
Yeah, oh
One.
yeah, they were. They had to be. That was the only place that they were recording.
Yeah,
with
because
before
they even
that.
had one, the best of the world, and so who the hell knows where they put it that one. So you're
These
saying,
things would be released and re-released over and over.
So you told me technically the first real album was Catch a Fire.
Yes.
It was like he got paid.
Yes.
It was done.
First
and
official album.
Okay.
Okay. They would. The songs on that album are amazing. I know one of your favorites, Concrete Jungle.
Concrete Jungle.
Slave
is one of the
Driver.
greatest songs. Slave Driver.
400 Years, which was written by Peter Tosh. Stop That Train, that was written by Peter Tosh as well. Baby, We've Got a Date, Stir It Up, Kinky Reggae, No More Trouble, and the Midnight Ravers. Now, it was produced by the Wailers and Blackwell. He got a producing credit as well, even though he probably didn't have a hell of a lot to do with it. It was mostly the Wailers.
So Iron Roy could take this album, but this album wasn't something that was just here. These albums were like everywhere, right? Because
Well, it would get a worldwide release.
Yeah, that's what I'm
It was
saying.
the first
It's
time their
amazing.
music. Yeah, it wasn't just going to be in Jamaica or England. It was going to be all over the world. Okay, and Blackwell's idea was we're going to treat this band. We're going to promote them like we would a rock band. Okay, which
And then-
was different than reggae.
and they were different, like nobody else saw that. Did they like it? There was
No.
like a total, like it
Totally.
was a breath of fresh
Now,
air.
let me show you what I got here. Okay,
This is
I
one
came
of
in
the
my
greatest thing I ever
collection.
seen in my
Okay.
life. Look
Now,
at that collection.
the Catch a Fire album when it came out was the shape of the record was like a Zippo.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is a collection of all their albums, and you open it up and it's shaped like a Zippo.
yeah.
Okay. So pull this album out.
Bob Marley and
All right. And after it was was limitedly released as a Zippo lighter, but then this became the album cover.
yeah.
Okay. Now this is one of the most iconic album covers I've ever seen. All right, because I mean, look at the size of that split.
Is he smoking a doobie?
He's looking at a big
It's
doobie.
a big giant
It's a
one.
big doobie. Okay. And I can remember being about 13, 14 years old in the record store, seeing this album, going like, "Holy shit!"
Yeah.
Okay.
That must have been controversial.
It was.
wasn't
It was. It was. Even years later,
It's
it still
a black
was.
man with a giant doobie.
Doobie in his mouth.
Imagine white women with their kids bringing this album home.
So this is the back. Got them hanging out on the back cover. Okay. Bob had just started growing his dreads. They weren't really long yet.
Those are baby dreads,
Those are
man.
baby dreads. Okay.
I gotta ask you, when did they decide to change the name to Wayne and do Bob Marley the Wayne? When did that
it's
happen?
interesting because I think when it was the Zippo lighter, it was called the Wailers.
The Wailers.
Catch a Fire. Okay. Then when it got re-released with the joint cover,
Yeah.
okay, I think it became Bob Marley and the Wailers
Yeah.
because he had already changed at that point.
All right.
Okay. See, the second album would come out. Okay.
Is that Burning?
And that's Burning. And that one, right here, this one came out the same year. This one, in '73, was just called The Wailers, Burning the Wailers. So they were still using just that name
Okay.
at that point. And this is a beautiful packaging inside.
Oh, yeah, look at that.
We got a lot of pictures, all the lyrics. Reggae albums weren't given this kind of treatment.
No.
This was the first time they were really given that kind of treatment.
But these guys were pretty much a hit off the back.
Yeah.
Like they were like a hit. They had like some.
Well, in Jamaica, they were a hit right away, even as the Wailing Wailers, but as this format, it was definitely a big hit. It only sold actually 14,000 copies worldwide originally.
Yeah.
Okay, which is not a lot, but it got a lot of critical acclaim, even in the States. And again, they were looking to promote this band almost as a rock band. So right away, Chris Blackwell got them out on a tour. Okay. Now, the Burning album will come out in October of '73. And, the one I just showed you here. And this is like a way more militant album. Okay?
Yeah.
You look at the tracks on here, it starts off with Get Up, Stand Up.
That's a great song. Get up,
Stand up for your rights.
Stand up
I
for
Shot
your
the
rights.
Sheriff is on here.
Great
Burning
song.
and Looting, Small Axe, which was like their little shot at Coxsone Dodd, because he wrote he started a label called Big Tree Records. Okay, and there's a lyric in Small Axe that says, if you want a big tree, we are a small axe, ready to chop you down. Okay, like that. You know, so he's actually, you know, these were they were rebellious.
They were rebellious.
You know, and reggae music to me was always black punk rock.
Yeah.
That's what it was. It was rebellious. It is rebellious.
But
it's
it
meant
wasn't,
to be.
you know what, but the difference between them and the songs were a little longer and
Oh yeah, they would
and,
be right.
and it wasn't as
especially-
fast. You
No,
know?
no, I don't mean the music wise, but the attitude.
The attitude. Yeah,
The
it was
attitude.
totally a punk attitude.
Yeah,
Was,
and that's why in the '70s, you know, punk and reggae would be intertwined. Okay, in England and in here
Yeah.
a little bit too in the States, especially in England. By the time punk broke in '76, '77, most of those early punk guys, Johnny Rotten, The Clash, The Slits, they were all big reggae fans.
because you know what, with the whole thing with this reggae coming
Yeah.
out, so with Bob Marley doing it, he's one of the few guys that actually increased the interest in reggae.
Oh yeah,
Like
Put-
people,
yeah. I
like
mean,
they were coming out because he actually went worldwide. This album
Yeah.
come worldwide.
Absolutely.
And when you think about reggae is totally different than any other genre. Like it's just its own. Like you couldn't describe it to the point that it has almost
well,
like
first of all,
it has upgrade. Like it has changed. Like you like Spanish people form a reggae is reggaeton.
it's morphed into different
No,
things.
it has
when,
morphed
when,
into
re-
so
when
many
reggae
things.
when reggae started, it was meant to glorify Haile Selassie.
Yep.
Okay, that's really the main point of it. Okay, so much reggae music is in that Rastafari theme where you're praising the king, okay, the emperor of Ethiopia, and praising Jah, praising God, praising
But his
Jesus Christ.
songs, I don't see none of his songs like that.
No, his
Praising
songs.
God.
What? He's got songs. So Jah say.
Yeah.
Forever loving Jah.
Yeah, Forever Loving
Okay,
Jah.
no, he
To me,
praised.
I thought they had different meanings. Like, you
No,
know?
yeah. I mean, there's like the Rastaman chant.
Rastaman chant is a
on
great
the Burning
song.
album.
Burning
okay?
Out, yeah. That's
I believe that's the last song
yeah.
on the album.
That's
And
a great song.
You have a Nyabinghi drum beat, okay, and the Nyabinghi drummers were controversial at the time. They were
Yeah.
the most orthodox of the Rastas. These were the ones that kind of kept to themselves. They played drums all day. Okay, very, very orthodox. Some of them didn't accept white people. Okay, that's a whole other topic. But he put that into the music, and it was different at the time. It was, people heard that, they went, "What the hell is that?"
Because it was such a different kind of.
But it moved people.
Yeah.
It moved people. Now, between 73 and 74, the Wailers toured the UK and the USA. Now, problems arose on that tour pretty quickly with Bunny Wailer. He left the band because he didn't like touring.
Nah, he did not.
And he did not like the cold weather going to England. He basically left the band over that. And he also, Chris Blackwell would have them playing strip clubs. Okay? Now, it went against their Rastafari teachings.
Yeah.
And, he felt, I don't want to be exposed to that. I get it, and it wasn't for him, so he left the band.
So you tell me you never had a stripper that give you a nice lap dance on One Love? It's very spiritual. It's very spiritual.
I mean, there's all different ways of looking at it. There's all different ways of looking. There's no rules, I mean, Bob had no problem. Okay,
I'm
Bob
just
had
saying,
no problem.
man, if you want to be spiritual, One Love in a strip joint and a girl living your lap dance.
I mean, there's a difference between being the band at a strip joint and going to a strip joint.
Yeah.
Okay, if you got to play, I've known bands that have had to play places like that, and they basically just split after the gig. I mean, what are you gonna do?
Yeah.
Blow all your money on dollars. What are you gonna do? It's crazy. So, Bunny didn't want to be around it. Remember, he was a country boy.
Yeah.
Okay, and he didn't want to be around that. Now, the U.S. tour would be cut short. Peter Tosh stayed in the band at that point. He went on the U.S. tour. They actually went on tour with Sly and the Family Stone. But it didn't last because after a few shows, they were bigger than Sly.
Yeah,
And
of
people
course.
were leaving after their act.
Of
And
course,
not
I can
sticking
see
around.
that.
And Sly said, fuck that, you're off the tour.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was the end of that. there could be a lot of changes coming because that would be the original band, and that wouldn't keep going.
Nah.
Okay,
but-
with Peter Tosh leaving and Bunny Wailer leaving, Bob had to regroup with a new band.
Yeah.
Okay, which he would do. Okay.
You know what the problem was? They were such an instant pop. They were so popular,
Yeah.
and they had hits. They actually had hits right away. Even here, the UK, everywhere in Australia, it wasn't like this was the album that came out. People knew it right away. People
Yeah.
knew the lyric, and for them to start, imagine how you feel. The opening that that's famous.
Just
as
beat
the-
you. Yeah, and Sly at that point wasn't as big as he was
No.
a few years earlier.
No.
So that was all he needed, really, have somebody upstage him. Like
Yeah,
that.
and
You know?
it's like fuck you,
Yeah.
I'm out.
Yeah,
you know.
yeah, you know. So, one thing I wanted to discuss though is the arrival of His Majesty. I wanted to get into that
Yeah.
a little bit more. This was a huge thing for the whole Rasta community
Yeah, of course.
in Jamaica. But word of all this would spread throughout the world, and you know, songs like Rasta Man Chant and other songs that Bob mentioned, Rastafari spirituality. He was really at that point like a
I like
messenger.
that punk Rasta Party is good too. One of my
Yeah,
favorite.
that's coming
That's
up.
A great
That's
song.
coming up in the next part.
Yeah.
You know, nobody did, and even to this day, nobody did more to promote Rastafari life than Bob Marley.
But he was also controversial because he also had a form of politics too. Because he
Yeah.
got a little political too for
Well,
his short
always.
career.
He was always
You know,
political.
for his short life, he got career. I think in part two
Yes.
we'll talk about some of the weird shit that happened to him.
Yeah.
Even to the point that somebody tried to take him
Tried to
out.
kill him. Yep.
And it was crazy,
Yep.
you know.
Yep. So we're done with part one, sir.
Part one, great. And remember, people, don't get
Get
drunk,
drunk, get lumped up. See you soon. Real soon.
No